For years, ill existed as little more than a series of jaw-dropping technical demos that looked almost too good to be true. But with the backing of Mundfish Powerhouse, the team behind Atomic Heart, this nightmare is finally becoming a reality. Ill is the debut project from Team Clout. You play as a survivor navigating a massive research fort overrun by a mysterious source of evil. But forget the lore for a second. The real star here is the body horror. The developers are veterans of the film industry, having worked on projects like Until Dawn and Longlegs, and they're bringing that cinematic gore directly into your face. The gameplay is built around a visceral dismemberment system. We're talking about shredded flesh, exposed bones, and muscles that react realistically as you tear them apart. It's not just for show either. Enemies react to pain and injuries with human-like reflexes, meaning a well-placed shot can completely change how a monster approaches you. Technical fidelity is the name of the game here. Built on Unreal Engine 5, Ill features advanced physics and binaural audio that makes every groan and wet footstep feel uncomfortably close. You'll have to manage a diverse arsenal of weapons, each with its own weight and physical properties, while also dealing with malfunctions and a very limited inventory. It's survival horror in its most raw, unforgiving form.
I'd like to say I'm not a violent man.
Look, we all know Insomniac Games basically has a license to print money at this point, but Marvel's Wolverine feels different. It's not just Spider-Man with claws, we're talking about a full-size, mature-rated global thriller that finally lets Logan off the leash, set for release on September 15th. This isn't some sanitized Saturday morning cartoon. We've seen the leaks, we've seen the trailers, the combat is fast, fluid, and frankly pretty gruesome. Insomniac is leaning into the Berserker rage mechanics, and from what we've gathered, it's going to be much more Logan than X-Men Origins. The story is taking us everywhere from the neon-soaked grime of Madripoor to the snowy Canadian wilderness and the streets of Tokyo. You're playing as a Logan voiced by Liam McIntyre, and he's up against some heavy hitters. We're talking the Reavers, Omega Red, and potentially even some Sentinel prototypes. What's really interesting here is the scale. This is the first entry in a planned X-Men trilogy, and it's meant to be a standalone, character-driven deep dive. They're moving away from the friendly neighborhood vibe and into something visceral. It's about the trauma, the cigars, and the adamantium. When we talk about World War I shooters, we usually think of the trenches of the Western Front, but Gallipoli, the upcoming historical tactical shooter from Ironside Studios, is shifting the perspective to one of the most brutal and strategically complex campaigns in military history. This isn't your typical run-and-gun hero shooter, it's a grounded squad-based experience that pits the Anzac and British forces against the Ottoman Empire. The level design is focused on the punishing verticality of the Turkish cliffs, where moving even a few feet forward can feel like an impossible task. The core of the game is built around a grit and morale system. Instead of a regenerating health bar, your effectiveness is tied to your squad's positioning and suppression. If you're pinned down in a trench with no support, your aim shakes and the world desaturates. It forces a level of teamwork and tactical patience that we rarely see in mainstream shooters these days. Visually, it's a striking contrast. You have these gorgeous, sun-drenched Mediterranean vistas and turquoise waters of the Dardanelles clashing with the grim reality of subterranean tunnel warfare and coastal battery bombardments. It's utilizing Unreal Engine 5's nanite tech to render every grain of sand and jagged rock on those treacherous hillsides.
I mean, sure, you get your mega fans.
It's been a long road back to Albion, but the wait for the Fable reboot is finally entering the home stretch. With an official launch window set for autumn 2026, Playground Games is looking to prove they can handle magic and steel just as well as supercars. For the first time in series history, this isn't an Xbox exclusive, it's hitting PlayStation 5 alongside the Series XS and PC. Rebuilt from the ground up on the Forza Tech engine, the visual fidelity is staggering. We're talking about a truly open-world Albion where every NPC in the living population system has their own routines, likes, and a memory that'll make them treat you like a saint or a pariah, depending on who saw you kicking that chicken. You'll start your journey in the sleepy village of Briar Hill, and for the first time, you've got a full character creator to define your look before Albion's morality system takes over. The combat is moving toward a fluid, style-weaving system, letting you seamlessly seamlessly chained together melee, ranged, and will-based magic. It feels modern, but with that signature, self-aware British wit that made the original trilogy so special. And yes, the life sim elements are back in full force. You can buy a property, start businesses, get married, and even deal with the fallout of a messy divorce. It's that blend of high fantasy stakes and mundane domestic chaos that gives Fable its identity. Plus, with Blizzard reportedly helping out on the cinematic front, expect those cutscenes to hit with a whole new level of polish.
To shreds.
If you've been feeling that post-Elden Ring void, you're not alone. But the Blood of Dawnwalker, the latest dark fantasy action RPG from the team at Etheria Studios, is looking to fill that gap with something remarkably grim and, honestly, pretty refreshing. Set to drop on November 12th, this game isn't just another Me Too Souls-like, it's built on a unique solar cycle mechanic. Basically, your power is tied to the position of the sun. During the day, you're a powerhouse of radiant energy, but once night falls, the game shifts into a pure survival horror experience where the enemies aren't just stronger, they're smarter. You play as a Dawnwalker, the last of a lineage tasked with rekindling the primal hearth. The world building here is top tier. We're talking about massive decaying cathedrals, forests made of calcified bone, and vertical level design that'll make your head spin. It's got that interconnected Metroidvania feel we all love. The combat is where things get spicy. Instead of a standard stamina bar, you're managing Icar. You gain it by playing aggressively and parrying, but you lose it by playing defensively. It forces you to stay in the pocket, dancing with bosses that look like they crawled out of a fever dream. Whether this can actually stand toe-to-toe with the genre giants remains to be seen, but the sheer atmosphere and the risk-reward combat system make it one of the most promising titles of the year.
You'd never break so easily.
Every once in a while, a trailer drops that looks almost too good to be true. That was the consensus when we first saw Phantom Blade Zero, but with the September 9th release date finally on the horizon, the hype is reaching a fever pitch. Developed by S-Game, this title is carving out its own niche with a style they're calling Kung Fu Punk. It's a dark, rain-soaked world where traditional wuxia martial arts meets steampunk-esque machinery. You play as Soul, an elite assassin with only 66 days left to live, which adds this constant ticking clock tension to the entire narrative. Now, let's talk combat, because it is fast. We're talking high-octane cinematic swordplay that looks like it was ripped straight out of a John Wick movie, but with ancient Chinese blades. It's not quite a Souls-like in the traditional sense. The developers have emphasized that it's more action-driven, focusing on fluid combos and parries, rather than just punishing difficulty. The technical side is just as impressive. Built on Unreal Engine 5, the game is pushing some serious visual fidelity on the PS5 and PC. We're seeing incredibly dense environments, from crumbling temples to muddy battlefields, all running with the kind of motion-captured precision that makes every strike feel heavy and intentional.
Hello everyone. I'm Mikael Kasurinen, and I'm the creative director of
When
Control.
Remedy announced a sequel to Control, we all expected more shifting concrete and levitating office supplies. But Control Resonant is looking like a total paradigm shift for the studio. Trading the claustrophobic hallways of the oldest house for the open warped streets of a paranatural Manhattan, scheduled for a 2026 release, the biggest shocker isn't the setting, it's the lead. We're stepping into the shoes of Dylan Faden, Jesse's brother, who's been deployed by the FBC to handle a supernatural crisis that spilled out into the real world. And honestly, the gameplay looks wild. Remedy is moving away from the standard third-person shooter roots and leaning heavily into action RPG territory. Combat is now focused on high-speed aggressive melee and telekinetic shift abilities. Think Prototype meets Devil May Cry, but with that signature Remedy psychological dread. You're using a shape-shifting weapon called the Aberrant to tear through the Hiss and a new fungal threat known as the Mold, all while the city of New York literally bends around you. The RPG depth here is surprisingly meaty. We're seeing full talent trees and build crafting that let you turn Dylan into anything from a lightning-fast assassin to a telekinetic wrecking ball. It's a massive gamble for the team, but seeing as they're now self-publishing, it feels like they're finally making the unfiltered Remedy game they've always wanted.
What a sight to behold.
It's been 7 long years since we last tore through the clouds of Strangerial, but the wait is almost over. Ace Combat 8 Wings of Theve is officially touching down in late 2026, and it's bringing a much darker, more grounded tone to the legendary flight sim franchise. Set in July 2029, the story kicks off with the Federation of Central Usia, the FCU crumbling under a lightning invasion by the Republic of Sotoa. You're a pilot stranded on the Endurance, an outdated aircraft carrier packed with refugees, and you're given a legendary call sign, Wings of Theve. But there's a catch. It's a total lie. The Wings of Theve was a fabricated propaganda piece created to keep civilian morale from flatlining. Now you have to become that legend to save what's left of your country. It's a fascinating narrative shift that explores the role of social media and misinformation in modern warfare, all while keeping that signature Project Ace's melodrama. Gameplay-wise, it's built on Unreal Engine 5, and the technical leap is massive. We're seeing a new dynamic target tracking camera and a heavy focus on squad connections with 3 AI wingmen who actually matter. Plus, fans are already spotting ties to the rise of General Resource Ltd, potentially bridging the gap to the cult classic Ace Combat 3 Electrosphere.
Swordplay action series. Get ready for
After 2 decades of silence, Capcom is finally bringing back the Genma-slaying samurai. Onimusha Way of the Sword isn't just a remaster or a spin-off, it's a full-blown revival of the mainline series, and it's set to drop later in 2026. Set in early Edo period Kyoto, you play as Miyamoto Musashi, and interestingly, Capcom secured the likeness of legendary actor Toshiro Mifune for the role. This gives the game an incredible classic samurai cinema weight, but don't let the realistic look fool you. The demons known as Genma are back, and they are more grotesque than ever, thanks to the RE engine. The core loop is classic Onimusha. You're using the Oni Gauntlet to manually absorb souls from fallen foes to power up your gear. But there's a new twist. If you aren't fast enough, enemies can actually reabsorb those souls to transform into deadlier versions of themselves mid-fight. It adds a frantic layer of strategy to every encounter. Director Satoru Nihei has been very vocal that this is not a Souls-like. It's sticking to its roots as a linear action-adventure, focusing on precision timing and the series' iconic Isen counter system. It's all about that perfect parry and the high-speed clashing of blades, rather than just punishing difficulty.
Rob Minkley, Krugs Magazine.
Bluffing is an art that will serve.
It's been over a decade since we've had a proper AAA James Bond experience, but IO Interactive is finally stepping up to the plate. 007 First Light is officially launching on May 27, and it's not just another movie tie-in. It's a ground-up origin story for a 26-year-old James Bond. Developed by the masters of stealth behind Hitman, this game takes us back to the very beginning. You're playing as a young rebellious Bond voiced by Patrick Gibson as he transitions from the Royal Navy into the MI6 training program. The goal? Earn that legendary 00 status. It's a global trek taking us from the streets of London to high-stakes chess tournaments in Slovakia and neon-lit galas in Kensington. Now, the gameplay is where things get really interesting. IO is calling this an inverse hitman. Instead of being an agent of chaos, you're a hero. The combat draws heavy inspiration from the Batman Arkham series, fast, fluid, and brutal, but with a heavy emphasis on creative approach. You can go full stealth using Q-branch gadgets like remote hacking watches, or you can go loud once you've earned your license to kill. Visually, this thing is a technical powerhouse. Built on an upgraded Glacier engine, it's introducing a proprietary volumetric smoke system and fully dynamic global illumination. Plus, for the first time in an IO game, we're getting controllable vehicles, including the upcoming Aston Martin Valhalla. It's aiming for that high-octane Uncharted spectacle combined with deep systemic spycraft.
This is an SOS from the forward.
Supermassive Games is finally taking us to the stars, and let's just say, space is looking a lot more crowded and a lot more hostile than we hoped. Directive 8020 officially kicks off Season 2 of the Dark Pictures anthology on May 12th. Set aboard the colony ship Cassiopeia, the story follows a desperate crew looking for a new home on Tau Ceti F, but after a crash landing, things go south fast. You're playing as a crew led by Lashana Lynch, and you're being hunted by a shape-shifting alien organism that can mimic its prey perfectly. It's essentially the Thing in deep space, and the paranoia is dialed up to 11. What's really cool here is that Supermassive is moving away from the walking sim roots. This is a full-blown survival horror shift. We're getting real-time stealth mechanics, improvised weapons, and actual exploration where a wrong turn in a dark corridor can lead to a permanent death. It's built on Unreal Engine 5, and the lighting effects on the derelict ship are genuinely unsettling. They've also introduced a new Turning Point story tree. It's a revamped way to track your branching paths, and for the first time, it looks like you can rewind certain key decisions to see how things could have gone differently. Plus, the classic 5-player movie night couch co-op is back, which is basically the only way to play these games if you want to lose some friends over a bad QTE. It's finally happening. After years of rumors and enough concept maps to fill a garage, Forza Horizon 6 is taking the festival to the one place fans have begged for since the beginning. Dropping on May 19th or the 15th, if you grab the premium edition, this is Playground Games' most ambitious project yet. We're moving away from the sprawling deserts of Mexico and into the neon-soaked, dense urban sprawl of Tokyo. But it's not just city streets. The map stretches from the snowy peaks of the Japanese Alps to the iconic hairpin turns of Mount Fuji. The big gameplay shift this time, structured progression. You're starting as a tourist who just stepped off a plane, and you actually have to rise through the ranks to earn your way into the high-performance tiers. They've also introduced Touche battles and a dedicated R-Class for track-focused monsters, giving the drifting and tuning communities exactly what they've been asking for. Visually, the game is leaving the previous generation behind, built entirely for the Xbox Series XS and PC on an overhauled Forza Tech engine. The verticality in Tokyo is insane, utilizing tech from the Hot Wheels expansion to create multi-layered elevated highways. And for the first time in series history, a PlayStation 5 version has been confirmed for later this year. TT Games is returning to Gotham in a way that's much bigger than we expected. LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight is officially dropping on May 22. And surprisingly, that's actually a week earlier than its original date. Since GTA 6 moved its massive release window to November, the spring belongs to the Bat. This isn't just a sequel, it's a narrative journey from Bruce Wayne's early days training with the League of Shadows to becoming the legendary protector of an open-world Gotham City. We're talking 4 massive islands including iconic spots like Ace Chemicals, Arkham Asylum, and Wayne Tower. The gameplay is seeing its biggest overhaul since the Skywalker saga. TT Games has introduced a combat system inspired by the Arkham series, featuring fluid attack chains, stealth takedowns, and a specialized Dark Knight difficulty for those who want a real challenge. You'll be swapping between 7 playable leads, including Nightwing, Batgirl, and Jim Gordon, each with their own progression trees and signature gadgets. But the real draw is the legacy aspect. This game is packed with over 100 suits and 20 vehicles spanning 80 years of history. Whether you want to drive the 1989 Batmobile, the Tumbler, or even the bike from the Batman, it's all here. They've even leaning into the nostalgia with the launch trailer featuring Seal's kiss from a rose.
In prison, the simplest of all laws apply.
If you're a fan of Eurojank RPGs, you know that the original Gothic is practically holy ground. It was immersive, punishing, and weirdly alive. Now, Alchemia Interactive is bringing us back to the barrier with the Gothic 1 remake. And honestly, it's looking like a masterpiece of atmosphere, set to drop on September 22nd. This isn't just a fresh coat of paint. The devs are rebuilding the entire colony from the ground up using Unreal Engine 5. The goal here is modernized but faithful. You're still the nameless convict tossed into a magical prison, and you still start at the absolute bottom of the food chain. The big talking point is the reimagined combat. Gone is the clunky rhythmic clicking of the 2001 original. It's been replaced with a weightier, more tactical system that rewards positioning and timing. But don't worry, the simulated world is still the star. NPCs have full day-night cycles, they'll get annoyed if you barge into their huts, and the wildlife still follows a food chain that doesn't care if you're level 1. Visually, the old camp looks incredible. The lighting from the magical barrier overhead creates this constant, oppressive sense of dread that the original was famous for. And for the collectors, a physical release is confirmed featuring a fully loaded version of the game that's been optimized to run without day 1 bloat. It's the game that turned every Assassin's Creed fan into a sea shanty singing pirate. And after years of speculation, the rumors were true. Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced is setting sail on July 9th for PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC. Ubisoft is calling this a faithful enhanced remake, and they aren't kidding. Rebuilt from the ground up on the latest Anvil engine. The visual leap is staggering. We're talking full ray tracing, a complete overhaul of the water simulation tech, and dynamic weather that actually impacts how the Jackdaw handles during a storm. It looks less like a 2013 remaster and more like a modern powerhouse. But the biggest changes are under the hood. They finally added a crouch anywhere mechanic and reworked the stealth to be more flexible, so no more instant desyncs just for being spotted. Combat has also been tightened up. It's faster and more parry-driven, moving away from the counter-kill loops of the original to something that feels more visceral and challenging for the story nerds. There's even new content here. Ubisoft has added exclusive story arcs for fan favorites like Blackbeard and Stady Bonnet, plus new crew loyalty missions that let you get to know your officers better. It's a deeper dive into Edward Kenway's journey that fills in some of the gaps from the original campaign. When you think of Game Freak, you think of pocket monsters and colorful adventures. But Beast of Reincarnation is the studio officially stepping out of the shadow of the Pikachu-shaped giant and into something much darker. Launching on August 4, this is a science fantasy action RPG set in a ruined Japan in the year 4026. The world has been consumed by the Blight, a parasitic plant force that turns wildlife into horrific hybrids called Malefax. You play as Emma, a warrior cursed by the very parasite she hunts, traveling alongside a plant wolf companion named Ku. The gameplay is what they're calling a one-person, one-dog action RPG. It blends high-speed katana combat with a tactical command system. While you're parrying and slashing as Emma, you can slow down time to trigger blooming arts. Powerful support abilities where Ku summons area of effect plant attacks or binds enemies. It's a rhythmic balance between frantic action and calculated strategy. Visually, the jump to Unreal Engine 5 is massive for Game Freak. We're seeing a segmented journey from Kanto to Kyoto, filled with crumbling ruins and boss fights against massive Malefax called Nushi. There's even a sci-fi twist with mechanical golems, remnants of humanity whose souls have been transplanted into machines, many of whom have gone rogue. Forget everything you know about being a detective in the Lovecraftian world. The Sinking City 2 is officially trading the magnifying glass for a shotgun. And the result is a full-blown survival horror experience that's looking remarkably grim. Set to drop in summer 2026, this sequel moves the action from Oakmont to the infamous city of Arkham. You're playing as Calvin Rafferty, an occult adventurer searching for his partner, Faye, who's trapped in a supernatural coma. The catch? The city is rapidly flooding, and as the water level rises, it literally reshapes the map and the threats you're facing. Frogwares is taking a massive risk here by pivoting away from the investigation-first gameplay of the original. This time, combat and resource management are the core loops. You're scrounging for 1920s-era firearms and melee weapons to survive against the Slither, a parasitic entity that reanimates the dead into some of the most grotesque puppets we've seen in the genre. Don't worry, the detective roots aren't totally gone. Investigation is now a beneficial layer, meaning if you take the time to solve puzzles and hunt for clues, you'll unlock secret areas, lore, and crucial upgrades. It's all powered by Unreal Engine 5, and the lighting effects on the murky, flooded streets of Arkham create a suffocating sense of dread.
Welcome to the Galactic League!
Now, this is podracing. Well, sort of. While we've been begging for a racer remake for years, Star Wars Galactic Racer is something entirely different. It's an arcade adventure that looks like what happens when you smash Burnout into the Outer Rim, and it's officially hitting the grid on October 6, 2026. Developed by Fuse Games, a studio founded by former Criterion leads, this isn't just about crossing the finish line. Set in the lawless New Republic era, you play as a pilot named Shade rising through the ranks of the Galactic League. The focus here is on combat racing. We're talking slams, shunts, and full-on takedowns across planets like the volcanic Lantana and the snowy peaks of Ando Prime. The core mechanic is a genius 2-level boost system. Level 2 kicks in a jet engine that provides insane speed but generates massive heat. You actually have to interact with the environment to stay in the race. Think diving through waterfalls to cool your engines or dodging lava flows that'll blow your repulsor craft to bits. It's all about managing that risk-reward tension at 600 miles per hour. Visually, it's a technical showpiece for Unreal Engine 5, featuring native DLSS 4.5 support on PC and hardware-accelerated ray tracing that makes the neon paddocks and shipwreckage look incredible. And for the physical media fans, there is a massive $160 collector's edition that comes with a physical model of the core Saroon land speeder and a steel case.
Fall to ash. Consumed by the void.
We've been tracking this one since that mind-blowing 2023 reveal. And while the wait has been long, the next-gen promise of Chrono Odyssey is finally coming into focus. Developed by Chrono Studio and published by Cacao Games, this ambitious project is aiming to be the definitive Unreal Engine 5 MMO. Now, for the big update. While we were originally hoping for a 2026 launch, the devs have officially shifted the target to Q1 2027. The reason? They're doubling down on polish and completeness following several rounds of core testing. But don't worry, we aren't going in dark. A new beta test is slated for this month, May 2026, specifically targeting the Western audience to fine-tune the game's stability and economy. What sets Chrono Odyssey apart is its chronotector mechanic. This isn't just a gimmick, it allows you to freeze time, rewind events, and even explore alternate timelines of the same location. The combat is a 2-weapon system where you can swap mid-combo to trigger passive buffs, making the action feel more like a high-speed character action game than a traditional tab-target MMO. The world of Cetera is a seamless open world, and the recent dev notes have revealed a massive new matrix system. This is a node-based progression tree that lets you customize your build so heavily that even 2 players in the same class will have completely different combat rhythms. They've also added a helper system, allowing you to bring along NPC allies if you prefer a more solo-friendly journey through the game's dungeons and raids.
What did you believe?
Remember the screaming zombie deer from 2020? Yeah, it's time to talk about what's actually happening with State of Decay 3. After nearly 6 years of radio silence and pre-production purgatory, Undead Labs has finally opened the gates. We're officially entering the alpha phase this month, May 2026, and the leap from the second game looks massive. This isn't just a map expansion, it's a full-on ecosystem shift. We're moving away from the indie jank charm of the first 2 and into a high-fidelity Unreal Engine 5 nightmare that actually feels like a flagship Xbox exclusive. The big focus for this alpha is the refined 4-player co-op and a much deeper base-building system. They're moving toward a more persistent world feel, where your impact on the environment actually sticks. And yes, the technical side is finally catching up. We're looking at a world that leverages the Series X hardware for seamless transitions, and hopefully fewer cars getting launched into the stratosphere by a stray pebble. While a full release is likely eyeing 2027, these 2026 playtests are the first real look at how the survival loop has evolved. It's a darker, more grounded take on the apocalypse that focuses less on the fun of the zombie mash and more on the brutal reality of keeping a community breathing. World War II occupied Paris, and 2 of the heaviest hitters in Marvel history going toe-to-toe before they team up. Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra is looking like the cinematic blockbuster we've been waiting for, and honestly, it's about time. Originally slated for 2025, the game has been pushed back to late 2026 to avoid the absolute thermonuclear bomb that is the GTA 6 release window, developed by Skydance New Media and led by the legendary Amy Hennig. Yeah, the mind behind the first 3 Uncharted games. This is a narrative-driven action-adventure that's putting story and character front and center. You're not just playing as one hero, you'll be swapping between 4. Steve Rogers in his early Captain America days, Azuri, T'Challa's grandfather, and the World War II era Black Panther, plus a Howling Commando and a Wakandan spy. The tension between Cap and Azuri in the trailers is palpable, and seeing that clash of ideologies in the 1940s is a brilliant setup. Visually, this thing is a monster. Built on Unreal Engine 5, The level of detail in the facial animations and the grittiness of war-torn Europe is pushing some serious boundaries. It's aiming for that playable movie feel, and with a physical release coming via Plyon, collectors can actually own this piece of history without worrying about server shutdowns down the line. Forget the bigger and louder trend for a second. With Gears of War E-Day, the Coalition is doing something we've been begging for. They're going home. This isn't a sequel, it's a prequel set 14 years before the original game. We're heading back to the very beginning, Emergence Day. This is the moment the world of Sarah realized the floor wasn't solid and the nightmare was real. We're following a younger Marcus Fenix and Dom Santiago long before they were the hardened legends we know. The vibe here is a total shift back to the series' horror roots. Instead of a war-weary slog, it's about the sheer visceral terror of seeing a locust for the first time. The devs are using Unreal Engine 5 to make these creatures look genuinely repulsive, less like video game grunts and more like biological nightmares. Technically, it's a powerhouse. We're seeing a massive jump in environmental destruction and lighting that makes the crumbling cities of Sarah look hauntingly beautiful. It's that classic destroyed beauty aesthetic dialed up to 11. It's a bold move to step back in time, but by focusing on the brotherhood between Marcus and Dom during the most terrifying day in human history, E-Day looks like it's recapturing the soul of the franchise. It's dark, it's personal, and it's exactly what Gears needs right now. Wait, is that a modern-day London skyline being impaled by a spectral Excalibur? Yeah, it is. Welcome to Tides of Annihilation, the latest Arthurian punk action RPG from Eclipse Glow Games that looks like someone put Stellar Blade and Nier Automata into a blender with a dusty copy of the Once and Future King. You play as Gwendolyn, a survivor in a post-apocalyptic London that's been swallowed by a mystical gray fog. But you're not just swinging a pipe, you can summon spectral versions of the Knights of the Round Table. It's a dual fighting system where you're basically a one-woman army with a Ghost Knight backup band. The scale here is what's actually wild. The devs are promising over 30 boss fights, and some of them called Colossal Knights are basically entire vertical levels. You're not just fighting them, you're climbing them while the city crumbles around you. It's built in Unreal Engine 5, so with the new path tracing and DLSS 4.5 support, the modern medieval aesthetic looks genuinely crisp. It's got that high-speed, flashy combat we've been seeing a lot of lately. But the hook of exploring a fractured London and a mythical Avalon simultaneously gives it a flavor all its own.
It's one of those places where you can meet shady characters.
It's been over a decade since we hung up the silver sword with Geralt, and while the Wild Hunt set a bar that most RPGs are still trying to clear, The Witcher 4, internally known as Project Polaris, is officially entering the arena. CD Projekt Red has been surprisingly candid lately. During their recent earnings calls, they confirmed that while the game is in full-scale production with over 400 developers, it definitely won't be launching in 2026. We're looking at 2027 at the earliest, as they're taking the time to ensure they don't repeat the technical stumbles of Cyberpunk's launch. The big news? Ciri is our new protagonist, voiced by Ciara Berkeley. This isn't just a cameo, this is her journey as a fully fledged Witcher. We're moving away from Geralt's stoicism and into a more emotionally charged, agile combat style. Expect to see her using blink abilities and casting spells on the move, all powered by Unreal Engine 5. The world building is also shifting. The teaser's Link's medallion suggests a new Witcher school, and we're reportedly heading to the Kovir region, a snowy northern kingdom only mentioned in previous games. The devs are promising a more interactable open world, more NPC variety, and a massive jump in animation fidelity with over 80 different locomotion cycles. With the original composer from The Witcher 3 returning and a focus on player agency, this is the start of a brand new trilogy planned to release over the next 6 years.
What you doing up there?
It's the most anticipated game of the decade, a title so massive it literally dictates when every other publisher schedules their games. We're talking about Grand Theft Auto 6, and after a series of heart-wrenching delays, we finally have a locked-in date, November 19th. Rockstar is taking us back to the neon-soaked chaos of Vice City, but this time, it's just one part of the sprawling state of Leonida. We're following the Bonnie and Clyde style duo of Lucia and Jason. From what we've seen in the trailers, the level of social media integration and Florida man energy is off the charts, making this the most lived-in world Rockstar has ever built. Under the hood, the Rage engine is doing some heavy lifting. We're seeing next-gen water physics dense crowds with individual AI routines and lighting that makes those Vice City sunsets look photorealistic. The map is reportedly over twice the size of Los Santos, covering everything from the urban sprawl to the murky Everglades of the grass rivers. What's really important for the collectors out there is that Rockstar has officially confirmed a physical disc release day and date with the digital launch. Despite rumors of a digital-only debut to prevent leaks, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick shut that down. This is going to be a massive physical event, reminiscent of the midnight launches of the PS2 era. With a massive marketing blitz set to kick off this summer, the hype cycle is about to enter overdrive. But after 2 major delays, the big question remains, can any game actually live up to 13 years of expectation